I'm Thurston County Commissioner John Hutchings. On this episode of Thurston County Connection, I'll be interviewing Coroner Gary Warnock and two of his deputy coroners. This is going to be fascinating and informative. Please watch. I'm Thurston County Commissioner John Hutchings, and today I'm with our county elected coroner, Gary Warnock. And thank you very much for you taking the time to do this, Gary. How long have you been a coroner?
I'm in my 13th year now, and I've been with the office since October of 2001. So I did investigations for 5 years as a deputy coroner investigator, and then ran for office and took over January 1st, 2007.
How many staff do you have?
I have 6 full-time investigators and a half-time admin assistant, and my morgue technician, he's been with the office, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Since 1963.
It's amazing. He's 1963.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And he does a majority of our photography, and he assists in the autopsy room.
It's crazy. What's your budget?
Operating budget is 1.3 million.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, could you use more?
I could always use more. I would love to get another full-time investigator just to keep up with our population and the cases we bring in.
Interesting. So with the increase in population, or do you mean with the decrease in population?
Increase.
Okay, so that just brings in more workload at this end as well.
Correct. As long as there's an increase in population, there's going to be more death.
What numbers are we dealing with in your office?
So
with deaths?
Population right now, I think we're, depending on who you talk to, 286,000 people. That was a rough number I was given. There will probably be around 2,700 deaths reported this calendar year, and out of the 2,700, this office will probably investigate close to 400 of those deaths, and those are sudden, violent, unexpected deaths, suicides, overdoses, traffic collisions, anything suspicious, all infants, and then people who just appear in apparent good health, who die suddenly. They become a reason for us to look further as far as why they died.
And most of those people have family or loved ones.
Majority.
That you work with.
Sure, majority, but there are some that don't.
And let's get to that then. They're called the indigent and unclaimed?
Correct.
Would you explain that for the public, please?
Sure. The indigent and unclaimed are, indigent is a person who dies without funds. Unclaimed is basically, it's somebody who is not willing to come forward and claim them. And there are, it's kind of a sad story to tell, but we've got 41 urns that are unclaimed. Whether they're indigent or unclaimed, they're 41 urns that we have in control that nobody wanted. And some of those people have family who just said, you know, I haven't seen my dad or my mother or my brother or sister, whatever the case may be, haven't seen them in 10 or 15 years. I don't care what you do with them.
That is sad. It's very sad. And I would imagine that with the fair amount of unclaimed or indigent, there's a significant amount of investigation that goes on.
There's a lot of time spent looking for family. We've become a transient community. We don't live where our roots were set down. People, they move across the country, or to a different country for all that matter, and they're hard. It's really difficult to find people. And then when we do find people, they'll ask us, well, how come you didn't notify me earlier? How are we supposed to know?
Couldn't find you, yeah. You don't exist here.
Yeah.
Homelessness is a huge issue in this county, nationally. And I would imagine we have some, I don't want to say a fair amount because I don't want to misrepresent the numbers, but we have homeless folks that pass
Sure.
in the woods and such. Is it difficult to find out where they came from and who they are? And have you seen those numbers increase in your tenure? Have you seen the number of indigent and unclaimed increasing or not?
The number has increased, yes, but whether or not they're homeless is not, I don't think it's really reached the numbers as far as homeless deaths. We do get our share of places that are governed as far as homeless sites. The place downtown Olympia, we get maybe one or two there a year. What's the shelter just down the street here? Camp Quixote.
Camp Quixote? Uh-huh.
We recently had one there not too long ago.
And you'd be able to figure out who that individual was.
Sure, but as far as the homeless people, it just depends on who they know, who their acquaintances are, and what kind of information are we going to find as far as in their personal effects. Pretty much that's their world. A backpack is all they have, and then it's a lot of hunting and pecking on the computer, making phone calls. We can do fingerprints to see if they've been arrested or incarcerated and see what the files have on them as far as next of kin or any family members listed. But it's really difficult to find people.
Hence,
survivors.
you need an additional investigator
I would
just
love,
to handle the caseload. Was there a policy that you changed or instituted that has never been a policy before when you came into office?
Yeah. So when I was an investigator prior to taking over, the policy was that we weren't allowed to take family members back into the back room and see their loved one. It either had to be through photography or through a monitor, through a camera. And the reason that all changed for me was our oldest son was killed in Iraq in June of '06, and we weren't given the opportunity to see him. And for me, who am I to tell a family member that you can't see your son or daughter? And so when I took over, that was the first thing I changed. I told my staff, if the family wants to see their loved one, we're going to make arrangements to do it, and we just have to make sure it's done during working hours, and there's got to be at least 2 people here.
Okay.
And I've never had a complaint yet from a family member. If anything, they've walked out of here with no, what if that really wasn't him type thing. So they actually got to physically be there in the same room, touch their loved one or kiss him one last kiss goodbye.
And many people don't realize the importance of that.
It's very important. So yeah, we walked away from the cemetery not knowing whether that was really just or not. But reality, it's we know it's not. We knew it was him.
Yeah. Which brings me right to this next question: how do you yourself, and what do your staff do? And I'll ask them the same question. Do to guard yourself against emotional fatigue or compassion fatigue, or how do you debrief yourself? How do you maintain that level of, I'm not taking this home?
I think we do a pretty good job in-house of just talking amongst ourselves. They may have, I'm not sure. Some of the cases we've dealt with have been very high stressed. Whether or not they seek professional therapy or not, I don't know. But I know that we can tell by reading each other's body language. We know if something triggered them, and we just talk about it.
And you know that with family members, you know when
Sure.
something's not right.
Sure, and we spend more time with these folks than we do our own families. So you pretty much, this is a small staff, so you get to know their body language and their mannerisms, and you'll know if they're off.
The tone of voice and such as well.
And the staff, if they come back on from a just a traumatic event, they'll sit back there and they'll talk about it. They may talk about it all day, hey, or it's just a 1-hour conversation or a 5-minute conversation.
Yeah. Wow. A lot different than the public sees on television.
Yeah, the television. Just because it's on TV doesn't mean it's real life. Toxicology doesn't take 10 minutes. It takes months. There was a period in this beginning of this year, even part of last year, families were having to wait for toxicology results for us to finalize a death certificate. So in the meantime, that's pending. Say the breadwinner's dead and you've got a mother with 2 small kids. Life insurance doesn't pay on a pending death certificate. So in the meantime, there's no income, breadwinner's dead, life insurance policies don't pay out, and so they've had to wait for a year for that to be finalized. So now it's picking up now to where it's getting, turnaround time is 30, 60 days now, so it's getting there.
It's interesting. I did, years ago, I was adjunct faculty at St. Martin's University, and I was teaching a crime scene investigation class. And of course, one section on that, it was on evidence and such, was on death investigations. And you allowed me years ago to bring my class through, and you conducted a tour for them. And they learned a lot. They greatly appreciated it. I don't think anybody followed into the profession, but it's fascinating when you look at it from the evidentiary piece, investigatory piece. Very fascinating.
Yeah, I give tours. I do presentations at Timberline, their Law and Justice class there, New Market Skills Center, River Ridge. There's 2 classes there that I present to, and then I give tours to many people throughout the year and classrooms. And it just opens their eyes because, you know, what they see on TV, and I tell them what you see on TV is it's not all that. And then when I bring them in here and show them, you know, this is the room where the autopsies are done, and I open the cooler and they can see where their bodies are stored, and it's quiet. It's like sacred ground, because before I go in there I tell them, listen, there's no horseplay, there's no laughing, oohing and on. When I open that door, you're going to see a body wrapped in a plastic sheet, and just remember a couple of things. That person belongs to somebody. That's someone's mom, dad, brother, or sister, and they belong to somebody. So it's quiet.
I don't know how to follow up on that. That's heavy stuff. So it's not high drama and action and in court, and it's not like, it's real, human, heart-to-heart, compassionate, but professional work that needs to be done.
Yeah, and my investigators, my female investigators, don't wear the skimpy skirts with the low-cut blouses. It's not like that, like it is on TV.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this segment, is to dispel any stereotypes and myths that are out there.
This is a people person job. It's not like a lab work where you're just wearing a white coat all day and you don't deal with the public. So when our phone rings, it's not because, you know, it's a baby being born. They're calling about death. And so I've told my staff, you know, if you're not a people person, maybe this isn't the job for you. And they've stuck with it.
And the room we're in right now is right off the lobby, and it's used for?
This is our family room. This is where we bring our families in. We will discuss the investigation, and we will transfer any personal effects the individual may have had when they arrived here, and sign over the paperwork, and then just talk about the next steps and process that are coming.
Wow, very informative, and people need information.
Mm-hmm.
Or they get frustrated, confused, and then they get angry. Gary, you're a gem to this community. I thank you very much for taking the time to do this. Welcome back. I'm here with two deputy coroners, Dawn Cease and Tracy McCullough. Thank you both very much for taking the time to answer questions for me and for the viewing public today, and giving us information that we don't know. For a profession that's not spotlighted all that often either. So I'm going to bounce the questions back and forth, and I'll start with you, Tracy. How long have you been a deputy coroner, and what drew you to this profession?
I have been a deputy coroner for about 5 years now, and I started out with search and rescue here in Thurston County, and very quickly learned that many people are uncomfortable with a deceased person and recovering a deceased person, and I found it interesting as far as wondering what happened to that person and what led to their death, and that brought me to this field.
Interesting, because you seem normal.
Thank you.
Dawn, how long have you been doing this, and what drew you?
I'm on my 6th year. I've been here since October of 2013. I've always been interested in death. I've watched a lot of crime shows. I'm normally a curious individual. I like to have answers for things. So I discovered early on they had a reserve program here in the office, and I started with that. And eventually you get trained. They send you to classes and you do some other things. And Gary called me and gave me the opportunity to work full time. So
very nice.
And I love working in this office. I love my coworkers. I spent 20 years in the service, and this is actually the first job of all the jobs I've ever had since I retired where I felt like we're all working toward a common goal. Nobody's here to outdo each other. We all work for the county. We all work for the people of the county, and I like that.
Lovely. Tracy?
Thurston County is a great place, and I hope that I don't have to meet any of you in my profession.
Exactly.
Well put. But that begs the question now, because you said you watch a lot of crime scene shows. How different is the reality of this work with TV?
The true crime scenes are all right, but like if you watch CSI and things, none of my coworkers, as you can see, dress in high heels and skirts. Totally wouldn't work out in the field. So you see things here that you don't see on television, and you'll smell things and you'll hear things. But the work is extremely interesting, and it's fun to solve puzzles, and sometimes you have puzzles that you have to solve.
That's what I loved about investigatory work, is the figuring it out,
Right.
the puzzle. So you've been doing this for a fair amount of years, a number of years. Is it still challenging to each of you?
Oh, yeah.
Still learning more?
Yes, every scene is brand new, and you don't know what you're going to get. So it's very challenging and very interesting every time we go out.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, when you get a call in the middle of the night, I don't know if Tracy does the same thing, but I gear up my brain for what I'm going to see, what I'm going to be working with, and is it going to be different? Because, as she said, no call is ever the same. You're never going out on the exact same call, so you have to be prepared.
Boy, you bring up another interesting question. That 2 o'clock a.m. phone call, as soon as that phone rings, you're switched on, aren't you? It's not, well, let me wake up. I mean, you're clicked and you're ready to go.
Yeah, I know I'm wide awake.
Wide awake.
Yeah. Wow, I kind of miss those days. Not that I wouldn't wish bad upon anybody, but those kind of days that you get the call in the middle of the night. How much training did each of you receive to get to where you are today?
The continuing education is always ongoing. So we start with a basic medical legal death investigation course, and then we continue from there with additional specific trainings.
And like I said, we had a reserve program at one point, so we were constantly training, and we would always work with the deputies. We were kind of like the person that would get items and, learn different things from each deputy that you worked with. And then, as Tracy said, we always have ongoing training. We go to different conferences, different things like that.
A lot of the training at the Criminal Justice Training Commission, or just the conferencing?
The criminal justice,
Does colleges offer some of these?
all of the above.
All of the above.
The Criminal Justice Training Center has a good child death investigation class.
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah, and we both attended that.
So what would you, before I get into the challenging portion of it, what would you find would be the most rewarding part of your job, Don?
Working with families, you're giving them the worst news they're ever going to get, and by the time you're leaving, they're thanking you for being there. Our cases in our county, we start from A to Z. We basically adopt the families. They're ours. The case is ours. The family's ours. And working with the family is the most rewarding because you're giving them answers that they need.
I agree with Don. We end up being the lifeline for many families in their time of need.
And oftentimes that's not here in this setting.
No.
It's in their living room. It's in their dining room. It's in their kitchen. And you're talking about a loved one that is deceased, that's gone and never coming back.
If we go out, we make notification. We don't rely on law enforcement. If it's a 2 o'clock in the morning call, once we've finished our case, if we have family, we'll go to them. If not, we come back here, research, try and find family, and then go to them. So we might be knocking on your door 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning to give you some really bad news.
And do you make those notifications, or you don't rely on law enforcement at all, or is that just very, very seldom to do the death notification?
Very seldom. We usually handle that on our own.
I like that.
Well, it's something that
From my perspective, being a former law enforcement, I like that because I've had to deliver on Christmas morning at 7 in the morning news that hey, your husband's not coming home.
Yeah, it's kind of a standard in the office, and we all take great pride in the fact that we do it. We would rather not have law enforcement because eventually we're going to be working with the family anyways, so we might as well start at the baseline.
Right, and that was my first and that was another state, by the way, and that was my first and last contact with the family, and it's so intimate. You're face to face with this family, and she was living. The surviving spouse was living with her in-laws. It was very tough, and then I was out. It was gone. So I like the way the system is set up here. What would be the the biggest challenge that you've had to face on a call, if you can think of one?
Children are challenging, very sad.
Yeah, I would agree because you have to, unfortunately with a lot of child deaths, you have to get the family to reenact the incident. And we have infant death kits that we use. So you may have to ask the parent to lay where they were laying and where the children or the child was positioned. And for me, that's the most difficult, to make them relive that. But it's important for the investigation.
That's very challenging and tough. Gary and we chatted about, and he told me about indigent and unclaimed deaths and the process and such. And I forgot to ask him, but can you explain what's going to happen with the remains, those 40-some urns that you have now of the indigent and unclaimed?
A memorial service for All Souls Day, and those unclaimed will be memorialized.
And how many were there? 41, 40-some?
I believe so, yeah.
And one is a baby, I'm told.
I think so, yeah.
That's got to be tough, but at least they're being cared for all the way through the process, and that's at Mills and Mills, I understand.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. How do you, after going from this challenging question with death investigation of a child and such, how do you not take this home? How do you protect yourself once you leave here, or even while you're here? How do you protect yourself, your emotional well-being, so you're not emotionally fatigued, compassion fatigued, and taking it out on others? How do you survive?
We have great coworkers, and I think our debriefing process is best done by talking about our cases with each other. My coworkers are the ones who understand the best.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about anything we see or do with people who don't do this for a profession. And like Tracy said, our coworkers are excellent. I'm the only man in our office other than the boss. I have 5 female coworkers, that are investigators, and you can talk. We talk to each other about anything and everything that bothers us.
And without offending each other.
Right, exactly, without offending each other. And in fact, I often joke that I'm the oldest guy in the building, and they put up with me because,
But would you recommend this profession to others?
First, I would recommend checking it out thoroughly to determine whether it's something you would really want to do. Know all of the aspects of it.
You have to have compassion, but you also have to be forceful at times. You have to be nosy. That's the best way to put it. You have to be nosy because there are questions you're going to have to ask people that they're not going to want to answer, and you have to be able to judge people quickly, as in law enforcement. Because when you go to make a notification at night, you're looking at someone, and you have to figure out exactly how you're going to approach them, because you don't know what the reaction is going to be. So it's not for the faint of heart.
No, and I would imagine, not knowing the crime scene, what you're stepping into, you don't know if you're with a suspect or not.
Exactly.
Either, or someone's complicit in the crime, if there was a crime. I want to find out from you, getting back to the reality of your profession. Do you find yourself traipsing out in the woods and stomping around in muddy fields and such, or not so much like you see on TV? And do you spend time in court? And what kind of time do you spend in court, if at all?
Muddy fields.
You see it on TV all right.
The rain and the snow, and yes, we're out in all kinds of weather.
Yeah. Court, I know have you ever been subpoenaed? I've been subpoenaed several times to testify in court, but I've never had to go. I know several of my colleagues have, but I have yet to have to testify.
Okay.
I have not testified as of yet.
And so, procedurally, do you determine, or is it a medical examiner? Who determines the method and the manner of death?
The deputy coroner
Deputy coroner does?
determines the cause and manner of death.
And what does that mean? And then we'll end with that. What does that mean? The cause and the manner.
The cause of death, what did the person actually die from? And the manner is
You have
natural,
natural, suicide, homicide,
accident,
accidental, and undetermined.
Undetermined.
And undetermined is argumentative because some people don't believe that there is such a thing, but there is undetermined.
Because you can't prove one way or the
Exactly.
other.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. It's always comforting to know that we have such professional, dedicated people working for Thurston County. For more information on the coroner's office, please look at the county website. The information is at the bottom of your screen. Thank you very much for watching.